You'll need to wear this." My cousin Rachel dropped a crisp black uniform on the bed without even looking at me. "The staff's short tonight. Since you work in hotels or whatever, you can help out." I held up the butler's jacket, biting the inside of my cheek to keep from smiling. If only she knew. I didn't just work in hospitality. I owned the Silver Pines Lodge, the exact place she was about to walk down the aisle. "You want me to serve drinks at your wedding?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Rachel smoothed her silk veil in the mirror and shrugged. "It's not like you were really invited, Elena. Uncle Mark says this is a good reminder for you. Some of us were meant to lead, and others, well..." She trailed off, but the message was clear. She had no idea that just weeks ago, she'd been sobbing into her phone when her original venue fell through. No idea that I had personally approved her emergency booking. No idea that this entire venue, this luxury mountaintop resort, was mine. 8 years ago, at 25, I walked away from the Carter family business. I didn't want to flip houses or push overpriced condos. I wanted to create experiences, spaces where people felt seen, valued, and pampered. They called me a disgrace. My uncle said, "No real woman leaves a legacy behind to make beds for strangers." But that's exactly what I did, starting from the bottom as a front desk clerk. I learned the business inside and out. Now, I own 7 boutique properties across the country. Celebrities, politicians, and Forbes-listed execs all know my name. Elena Wright, founder of Wright Hospitality Group. The Silver Pines Lodge book's out 2 years in advance. But for Rachel, I made an exception. "The ceremony's at 5, she added, scrolling her phone. "Be downstairs by 3 to help set up. And Elena, don't embarrass the family, okay?" I smiled. Wouldn't dream of it. After she left, I turned to my laptop. The wedding file was still open. Client, Rachel Carter. Approved by E. Wright, owner. A message popped up from one of our VIP guests. "Excited to see you tonight, Miss Wright. The lodge looks incredible." It does. And Rachel, she's about to find out that the girl she tried to turn into her butler owns the entire stage she's performing on. She beamed, thinking her last-minute booking at Silver Pines was thanks to the Carter family's influence. The irony nearly made me laugh out loud. My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant Lena. "Everything's ready for tomorrow. Full staff briefed. All under NDA per your instructions. You sure you want to go through with this?" I stared at the message for a long second, remembering every Christmas dinner where I'd been asked to help serve while the rest of the family drank wine. Every time my uncle had introduced me as the hotel girl, like it was something to be embarrassed about. Every time Rachel had smirked and said, "Elena's doing her little travel thing." "Absolutely sure," I typed back. "And make sure the uniforms are laid out, hers too." The next morning, I entered my own resort through the back service entrance. The crisp black uniform Rachel had left me was tucked under my arm. My staff played their parts flawlessly, greeting me like a trainee, showing me where to stash my things. "Miss Wright, my security chief, Marcus," murmured as I passed. "All cameras are in place. We'll capture the full event." I nodded. This wasn't about revenge, this was about reflection. Because sometimes the best lessons come dressed in humility. The lodge was buzzing. Floral arrangements worth 6 figures were being placed with surgical precision. The ballroom glowed with golden light beneath handcrafted chandeliers. The kitchen was a ballet of movement, chefs plating canapes like artwork. Around noon, my uncle showed up barking commands at the staff, as if he owned the place. "Is this really the champagne you're serving?" he scoffed at the sommelier. "This is a Carter wedding. You should know better." The sommelier, who'd personally selected that vintage for my private collection, kept his tone even. "I'll check with management, sir." My aunt breezed in soon after, oblivious, micromanaging the planner I'd hired myself. She walked past me twice without a flicker of recognition. By late afternoon, guests began arriving. Familiar faces, not just from family photos, but from luxury booking ledgers. The CEO of Stratton Bank, who had just requested exclusive buyout of my Aspen estate for New Year's. A Hollywood producer who liked to name-drop me at awards parties. And Peter Lang, the tech billionaire who once joked that one day he'd buy my company, having no clue I was Wright Hospitality Group. Elena. Rachel's voice snapped me back. Stop loitering, guests need champagne. I grabbed a silver tray, gliding into the crowd. Glass after glass they took from my hand, never once looking up. Exactly the way my family always had. You're just beginning to see how this night unfolds, so don't forget to subscribe for part 2, where one toast changes everything. My cousin Ethan, freshly promoted to junior partner at his father's firm, actually snapped his fingers at me. Hey you, we need more ice at table 4. I nearly laughed out loud. Just last month, he'd emailed my corporate office, practically begging to handle the legal contracts for Right Hospitality Group. My legal team sent back a perfectly worded rejection. Now here he was, treating me like I was just another member of the staff. I straightened, gave him a polite nod, and disappeared toward the kitchen, my expression calm, even as my chest buzzed with satisfaction. I played my role to perfection. I poured drinks, cleared plates, and disappeared into the background like I'd trained my team to do. But I was listening, watching. Every dismissive wave of the hand, every smug glance, every offhanded insult, filed away like names on a ledger. The ceremony ended just before sunset. The reception was now in full swing, glittering under chandeliers I had personally commissioned. Rachel floated across the dance floor in her custom gown like she owned the world. She had no idea she was standing in mine. I can't believe you got silver pines, one of her bridesmaids whispered in awe. This place is booked solid for years. Rachel gave a graceful shrug, basking in the attention. Well, you know, the Carter name still carries weight. Once they realized who we were, they practically begged us to host the wedding here. I topped off their glasses without a word, letting the irony sit in silence. Elena. My uncle's voice cut through the moment, sharp and commanding. Stop dawdling and bring another bottle of the Bordeaux to the head table, and try not to spill it this time. I hadn't spilled a thing all night. Still, I retrieved a fresh bottle, the very wine I'd selected for this event from my private collection, and made my way to the long head table. He was already mid-story, speaking loud enough for his colleagues to hear. I think it's actually good she ended up in hospitality. Teaches humility. Not everyone is built for real success. They laughed, clinking the Venetian crystal glasses I'd imported just for the occasion. My aunt leaned in to add, at least she's working, unlike Connor, who's still living at home. I glanced at my watch. Almost time. A familiar buzz hit my phone, a message from Lena. All signage is placed. Your signal? I typed one word. Wait. Because like any well-plated course, the best reveals come with timing. Hey, waitress. Ethan's voice again. Tell whoever's in charge that the playlist's trash. This is not the vibe. I nodded smoothly and turned away, my heart calm, my smile quiet. They had no idea that the woman they just dismissed was the one orchestrating every single detail around them. And if you've stayed with me this far, you might want to hit that subscribe button, because what happens next at this wedding, you won't want to miss it. I had personally curated the evening soundtrack, a hand-picked blend of modern classical, performed live by the London Symphony Orchestra, which incidentally I sponsor annually. Of course, sir, I said to Ethan, offering a polite nod. I'll speak to the owner right away. Good luck with that, Rachel chuckled from behind her flute of champagne. Elena, Mr. Wright never shows his face, probably some ancient recluse who doesn't even know what's happening in his own resort. That was my cue. I reached for my phone and sent a single message to Lena. Now, the chandeliers dimmed slightly, conversations across the ballroom tapered off as the LED screens mounted along the walls flickered to life. The Silver Pines logo shimmered on screen in elegant gold. Then came the words, "Welcome to Silver Pines Lodge, a message from the owner." My uncle leaned forward. "What's this?" he muttered, his brow furrowed. The screen shifted. A series of high-definition photos faded in. Me standing beside ribbon cuttings in Singapore and Jackson Hole. Me shaking hands with dignitaries. Accepting the Luxury Hotelier of the Year award. Posing in front of properties with signs that read, Right Hospitality Group. My face, my name, clear as day. Gasps swept the room like a breeze. Champagne glasses paused mid-air. I reached up and slipped off the crisp black jacket I'd worn all evening, revealing a sleek, navy Tom Ford suit underneath. I stepped forward into the center of the ballroom. Actually, I said, voice steady, the owner is very aware of what happens in her resorts. Rachel's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. Ethan choked on his wine. My uncle's face drained of all color. That's not possible, Rachel whispered. Would you like to see the deed? I asked with a smile, or the annual financials? I assure you, everything is quite in order. You own this place? My uncle stammered. All 7 properties, actually, I replied. Silver Pines was the first, the place I learned what true hospitality really means, something the Carters never quite mastered. The screen continued, sweeping drone shots of our Swiss Alpine estate, aerial views of our oceanfront Maldives sanctuary, the rooftop lounge of our San Francisco flagship, my empire, quietly built while they thought I was just folding linens. While you were all too busy mocking my little job, I continued, I was building a brand worth 3 times more than Carter & Sons real estate. That landed hard. Their firm had always been our family's claim to fame. The thought that I had surpassed them without their notice made several jaws visibly clench. Why didn't you tell us? My aunt asked, her voice shaking. I looked her dead in the eye. Would you have believed me? 10 years ago you said no niece of yours would ever amount to anything serving other people. I glanced around the room. Turns out, I wasn't just serving, I was leading. You were right about one thing, I said calmly. I don't work in service. I revolutionized it. Right on cue, Lena appeared at my side, tablet in hand. That's right, the governor is on line 1. Should I let him know you're tied up with family matters? A murmur spread like wildfire. The same governor who earlier had waved me away like I was invisible was now asking for me by name. Elena, Rachel took a hesitant step forward, the lace of her gown brushing the polished marble. We didn't know. I never meant. No, you didn't, I agreed. You were all too busy looking down to ever look up. I turned slightly, addressing the entire ballroom, now a mix of stunned silence and darting glances. But that's okay. While you were focused on appearances, I paused, gesturing around. I was building something real. I took a deep breath and lifted my glass. Please, enjoy the rest of the evening. The reception has been extended 2 hours, on the house. A ripple of soft laughter moved through the crowd. I added with a wink, though I'm afraid I'll no longer be personally serving drinks. A few guests clapped, 1 or 2 raised their glasses in my direction, now realizing exactly who had been walking among them all night. From the front my uncle rose, straightening his designer tie like he was preparing for a boardroom pitch. Elena, he said, voice more careful now. Perhaps we should discuss this in private. Of course, I nodded smoothly. My office is just upstairs. Though you may remember it, you complained yesterday that the penthouse suite was wastefully oversized. A few guests chuckled. The irony had landed. He had spent nearly half an hour lecturing the front desk, my front desk, about hospitality standards, not knowing he was standing in the headquarters of a billion-dollar empire. As the music resumed, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations bubbled, curious, reverent, even embarrassed. She owns everything, I overheard one guest whisper, and they made her serve appetizers. Later that night, after the last champagne flute was cleared and Rachel had disappeared into the upgraded honeymoon suite I'd gifted her anyway, I stood in my office, overlooking the moonlit forest and lake. Lena entered, setting the final event report on my desk. Your family seems subdued, she noted. Amazing what a little perspective can do, I replied, remembering Ethan's awkward apology and my aunt's teary, faltering hug. Are you going to tell them about the expansion? Lena asked, nodding toward the contracts on my desk. The space tourism? I smiled. Bristol Cove had built resorts across continents. Now we were going beyond them, becoming the first luxury brand to offer zero-gravity accommodations. Let's save that for the next family gathering, I said, amused. After all, every great hotelier understands the value of repeat business. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. Can we talk tomorrow? I replied, of course. You're booked for breakfast at Ocean View at 9. I own that restaurant too. I own that too. Sometimes the greatest service you can offer isn't pouring wine or clearing plates, it's quietly teaching people what respect truly means. As I stood in the warm glow of my office, overlooking the pine-framed lake and mountains, I knew tomorrow would mark a new chapter in the Carter family legacy, one that wouldn't be built on empty pride or last names, but on earned recognition, and maybe a little humility. Because success was never about who you serve, it's always been about how you lead. And sometimes, leading means stepping back and letting others see what they've been blind to all along. I glanced over at the butler's jacket, still draped over the chair near my desk, a symbol of how low they believed I'd fallen. But tonight, it had served me better than any crown ever could. I smiled. It had been worth every tray, every fake nod, every snapped finger, for just one night, to show them that dignity has nothing to do with uniforms and everything to do with character. Outside, the sky melted into hues of amber and lavender, casting a soft golden light across the landscape of my resort. My resort. Tomorrow would bring expansion plans, investor calls, and maybe even a real conversation with Rachel over breakfast. But tonight, I was at peace. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't cold at all. It's warm, elegant, and comes with a view money can't buy. And just maybe, a reservation you can't fake your way into. If you've made it to the end of my story, thank you. Truly. Sharing this wasn't about proving anything to my family. It was about finally standing strong in the truth I spent years quietly building. For a long time, I let their dismissiveness define me. I let their voices echo louder than my own. But I've learned that you don't need their applause to validate your purpose. You just need the courage to walk your own path, even if it starts at the back door in a borrowed uniform. If something in my journey resonated with you, leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever had to prove your worth not by shouting louder, but by letting your actions speak for themselves? Support doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's as simple as clicking like, subscribing, and helping stories like mine reach someone else who might be sitting in silence right now, wondering if they're enough. You are. And if you ever find yourself doubting your worth, remember this: dignity isn't about titles or what others say, it's about who you become when no one's watching. So keep going. Quietly, proudly, and on your own terms.